Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I am the voice and the astrologer for this YouTube channel, Nonconformist Conscience. Last week, I didn't make a video. My kiddo's dad was visiting, and so we were doing family stuff. But I'm back at it this week, so thank you for your patience. This week, I will do two separate videos because we will have a new moon in Virgo happening on the 23rd. So today is August 16th, 2025. And a couple of things that I want to say about this week is that we have um, Mars still opposing, uh, you know, uh, Saturn and Neptune retrograde. Mars is the ruler of those two planets that are both retrograde. And we also are going to be having Venus trining the North Node all week long as well. And then Mars conjunct Venus's South Node. So there's some interesting dynamics going on. The other one that's going to be felt throughout this week is Jupiter square to Ceres. So let me kind of unpack these dynamics first, and then I'm going to talk about some of the other astrological conversations going down this week for you all. So, with this is kind of a yarn ball to untangle a little bit, okay? Because even some of the planetary nodes are really focused in during this week. So, this Mars and Libra ruling um, Saturn and Neptune retrograde. And it's in this opposition. It was opposing last week, it's still opposing this week. This is where we are really called to throw off old ways of how we've structured our relational dynamics in the past. And think about this on even a collective level and what's going on. Um, And so that really means it's important for each one of us to do our own personal work because Neptune is about the collective conscious. And when we each do our own individual work, it is connected to the collective conscious. Think about what is going on even with the rallies that are happening. There's this dynamic of, hey, we're wanting to throw off the ways in which society, social structures, Saturn is relating um, with the people. What is that relationship looking like? And everyone is feeling this. That's that Neptune retrograde as well. And Neptune is the ruler of this North Node. And so this is giving us a an opportunity to revisit and review in order to resolve the ways in which we've structured old dynamics pertaining to how we relate, even in society, how it's structured. And to really make a new choice. North Node in Pisces around compassion, love, faith, inclusivity. Pisces represents the totality of all of the archetypes held within the zodiac, okay? So this is very intense and we're feeling it. And then on a personal level, this is asking us to really look at and review what are the structures and the parameters within our relationships? How have they been conditioned? How can we resolve dynamics where we've had these ideals, Neptune, where it's pertained to the conditioning around how we relate, how we do our relationships. It's also really speaking to how we hear and listen to one another and where we're needing to throw that off. It's also pertaining to the integration of, Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. All right. Meaning that when we tap into Neptune as the higher octave of Venus, we really are transforming the ways in which we relate to ourselves in a deeply profound way that is more in alignment with the truth, the totality of truth. meaning, even furthermore, we are tapping into this deeply compassionate love, and understanding of ourselves, and really wanting to emphasize that in our other relationships. When we tap into Neptune as the higher octave of Venus in our personal lives, it means that we are not depending, Libra, Cancer, on others to fulfill any type of sustainment within. It means that we are becoming self-sustaining, on our own, right? And that really changes what we attract into our lives on a personal level. Because if we're needy and we're codependent, the kind of shadow aspects of Libra, then it means that we're not fully self-reliant or self-sustaining, not even on an emotional level. Venus in Cancer ruling that Mars in Libra. It means that we're going to be attracting people that could appear self-reliant, but when we get into relationships, whether it be friendships or it's our family members or whoever, we're all of a sudden confronted with, oh, they're just as needy as me. And so this is really giving us this opportunity with this opposition with Mars and Libra, um, with Neptune and Saturn retrograde, to really resolve these dynamics within our consciousness and to really restructure. And that means that we're being asked to make a new action, Aries, Mars, a new choice around this. And then we can pull in Venus and Cancer ruling Mars and Libra. And Cancer is really about self-consistency. What is it that you have been learning um, for the past few years around what it means to be emotionally secure within? How are you relating to yourself in that way? And now, how can you implement that in your relationships? Sometimes that means that, we have to make choices in our friendships or in our relationships where we're tapping into Neptune, the higher octave of Venus, and discerning the right ways in which we are meant to give, Libra. Okay. I had a friend who was really close to me, and this is a very Libran, Pisces, Taurus dynamic with a twist of Aquarius because it was a friend. And, I finally was able to express to this individual, hey, your choices have really had an impact on me. And I expressed that to them. And they ended up not talking to me for over a month. They kept putting it on the back burner. And I even said, hey, at some point, this feels like it's going to be irreparable if we can't really talk about this. And I had told this person, you know, whenever I have told you or expressed how your choices have had an impact on me, it really turns into this dynamic of how me telling you about this hurts your feelings and then everything gets lost in the sauce, right? Like there's no accountability. And I really expressed to this individual, um, you know, I'm concerned about you, um, in all of these different ways. And it reached this point that when they finally talked to me, it was them telling me how I felt. And it really had nothing to do with what I had actually said. They couldn't hear me because there was this filter of criticism that they hadn't healed within themselves. And for me, I had to really tap into Neptune, and understand the best way for me to discern how to really be giving to them, which was me actually stepping back, right? My intention wasn't to create harm or to um, to punish. It was in order for self-reflection to occur. Sometimes we need to step back. Sometimes people have to step back. And I'm just giving this as one example. There's so many ways that this can come up for people, but it was really about me even throwing off my prior dynamics of becoming apologetic and, you know, and not really standing in my own authority, and then allowing it to become something that it never should have been, right? Because we can typically, with like Libran dynamics, because there's a natural square to Capricorn, and by the way, Saturn is in this opposition sometimes, and especially with the South Node in Virgo, depending on where this is in your chart, sometimes this can be where we're like just we find the courage to express how someone's choices have an impact on us, and they don't have the ability to hear where we're coming from. And so um, then it gets twisted or turned around onto how us just expressing what it is we need or how we're feeling is about hurting them, whenever really it's not. It's about communicating. You know, Uranus and Gemini, Mercury just came out of retrograde. Um, and then we can overcompensate for those emotional dynamics, Jupiter and Cancer. And we can be the one who's apologizing, and yet that other person has never had to hold any type of accountability for the ways in which their choices impact their partner, their friend, their family member, their sibling, their cousin, their their work relationship, anything like that. And then it just creates a dynamic of it circling back around and over and over and over again. And at some point, there can become a dynamic where we're needing to throw off those extremes and tap into Neptune, the higher octave of Venus, and really just allow someone to be themselves and to give them the space to reflect on their own, right? And sometimes that can be, this really isn't working anymore. This isn't I'm no longer willing to Libra enable this behavior by taking all the accountability, by taking all of the levity of this situation. Um, so this Mars opposition it is really this conversation happening astrologically that is wanting us to make new choices around the extremes that have played out in our lives, dealing with our relational dynamics, stemming from how we have structured our relationships. And it's really about dissolving the old structures where we are either being, on the one hand, too, I don't want to say selfish, but Aries can be a little selfish, right? Sometimes it's where we're really having to change the ways in which we hear where someone is coming from, or even observing their actions whenever we vocalize what it is that we need, Libra, and really stepping into being able to structure our relationships in a way that is based in equity, Libra, and making choices around that, meaning I'm not really seeing that this isn't an equitable relationship. And so I'm going to have to appear to not give because I don't want to enable this anymore. And that Venus ruling Mars in Cancer is asking for us to be emotionally consistent, to take the wisdom, Saturn, that you have learned and apply it to your own inner relationship. And Venus trining the North Node and sextiling the South Node in Virgo is where we're improving upon these dynamics in order to really clarify and make new choices around how we give, how we receive, how we remain in our own autonomy, how we um, create action and choices around how we hear. It's really about sharpening our listening skills and cultivating empathy. I can hear where you're coming from. I can stand in your shoes, and two things can be true. I might not agree with what you're saying or how you perceive something to go down, but I also understand, you know, how that could feel for you. And so it can really create a harmonization. And also, this opposition from Mars to Neptune and Saturn retrograde, and then Venus in Cancer, the ruler of that Mars, trining the North Node, which Neptune rules, is really where we can tap into that higher octave. And through the actions that we observe or the, you know, feedback that we receive, we can make clear choices around how it is we're meant to give. And sometimes that means appearing not to give. Sometimes that means creating a new action and giving someone the opportunity to figure it out for themselves, right? Um, and that can be really hard. And it does take self-consistency, especially if it's new, because it can create a lot of insecurity within Cancer. It's also this dynamic of where we can, I want to be able to articulate this the correct way for you all. It's also where we might be needing to reevaluate the ways in which not only we give, but how we receive. Okay? Mars is conjunct Venus's south node during this whole week. And so it's bringing up the relational contents of the past. And with Venus sextile the south node, the lunar south node in Virgo, it's giving us an opportunity to pivot or to um, improve upon the emotional dynamics held within our relationships. But the sextile between Venus and the South Node and the trine between Venus and the lunar North Node really is this clarifying aspect of where it might not be fun, right? But we can really understand why something is occurring. And it helps us to, when we take those actions that are necessary, around expression, communication. I'm thinking of Uranus and Gemini. I'm also thinking of Mercury and Leo right now that just moved out of its retrograde, of how we are expressing or vocalizing what it is we need to within our relationships. Whatever the feedback is, the call is to not deny the actual reality of whatever situation is going on and to really create the discernment around what it is each of us needs to do in order to become more whole and secure within on an emotional level. And oftentimes that means having to follow your own inner guidance, your own inner gut, and not denying it. That's where we can get into sticky situations. It's like anytime you've ever looked back on something and you're like, if only I had listened to myself, Venus, listening from within. If only I had done that. If only I hadn't denied that. If only I had taken off the rose-colored glasses, I wouldn't be in this situation. These energies can be bringing this up for people individually in order for them to resolve this dynamic. And it can induce insecurity at first. but it can also, um, once that action is taken, it can also be empowering, okay? And it's about getting comfortable with making those new choices. So I really wanted to reiterate some of this. I didn't get to last week. These energies are still carrying over from last week. They're still happening this week. And when we look at today, August 16th, astrology, and this is going to be going on throughout the week too, what I want to say is we have Cassandra at 25 degrees Aries, balsamic to Chiron, right? It's ruled by Mars and Libra, that is still opposing everything that I was just talking about. Mars is conjunct that south node of Venus. And then we also have Lilith and Aquarius, ruled by this Uranus, um, sextile to Cassandra. And then Cassandra is sextile to the north node of Mars. This dynamic is really, really, really emphasizing what it is I've been talking about since the beginning of this video. Okay? So when we break this down, I'm going to stop this for just a second. Cassandra is about speaking truth, even if it's not believed. It's about um, recovering one's own ability to have the courage to speak, even if it's not believed or understood. It's also about recovering one's own inner knowledge and um, cultivating a healthier relationship with self, especially if there's old wounds around not being believed when one has spoken up about something. With Chiron and Cassandra balsamic here, this can really ignite, especially because Chiron is retrograde, it can ignite some of these old wounds about creating an action and speaking about something and not being believed. And with Mars in Libra ruling that, Chiron and that Cassandra, okay, and opposing Saturn and Neptune retrograde, again, it can really be igniting these old wounds around how we've structured our relationships, what our expectations have been when we've chosen to utilize our voice, to speak a truth, um, and to have the courage to do it. And with Lilith, sextile to Cassandra and to Chiron retrograde, it's really giving us this fight, right? In a powerful, beautiful way to really give us an opportunity, and Lilith is retrograde, to give us an opportunity to really liberate from the trauma of the past from when we vocalize something, Uranus and Gemini ruling Cassandra, and where that has created trauma because maybe you were scapegoated. Cassandra has this dynamic tied into her. Maybe you were scapegoated for saying something. Maybe you were alienated, isolated from the group or from your friends or from your family or from your partner for speaking out. And Lilith here is saying, be the champion of your own. All right. Um, do the thing that you might be afraid to do. Express what it is. Ask for what you need. And whatever the feedback is that you receive, Libra, that is going to tell you exactly what action is meant to be taken. Do you need to leave this behind? Is there a way that you could actually promote your own healing by doing that? And then with Cassandra, sextile the North Node in Gemini, it's really putting this emphasis on, and remember, that's ruled by Mercury and Leo, asking for what you want, choosing you, not South Node in Virgo, lunar South Node in Virgo, where we feel inferior, we don't feel good enough, or we feel like if something bad happens, we deserve it, even though we're trying to, express ourselves. This is really about liberating from all of these dynamics and throwing them off, and then integrating a new way of relating, not just to others, but to ourselves, that is really rooted in discernment and empowerment through expressing what it is that one needs to on an emotional level. Okay. And so it's very important. Then we have Jupiter throughout this week, squaring series. Jupiter's in Cancer. Venus and Jupiter just had their conjunction. Venus is now in a new phase. So that was really, where we are trying to start a new pathway to understanding how our beliefs correspond to our values and our needs, and how we are actually meant to be self-consistent with what actually feels authentic to us, dealing with our needs, and then meeting ourselves there. And Jupiter square series is all about recovering something that was lost. In Aries, especially ruled by Mars and Libra, did you abandon yourself in the past? Did you give your authority? Did you give your authority over? Did you lose your autonomy in relationships? Jupiter square to Ceres is asking for, again, it's reiterating. This is the thing about astrology. It is signatures that repeat. It is asking for us to make new choices. Mars and Libra around our relationships, where we can feel our independence, where we can remain independent and sovereign and whole into ourselves, and how that actually, through being self-consistent, Venus and Cancer, um, in that area can really be empowering. It can actually help us start a new cycle, Aries, really breaking free from the past, okay? And Jupiter square that is where we are allowing and reconnecting with our emotions, and really understanding that they are our biggest teacher, Jupiter. Okay, so this is whatever is coming up for you this week. Ceres helps seed into the consciousness what actions are meant to be taken. And Jupiter square series, especially in a first quarter square, is like the crisis in action. What do you need to do to throw off the past? Mars ruling that series and then opposing Saturn, Neptune retrograde. So there is a lot of revision and reviewing around these dynamics, and really calling for us to expand upon even our own emotional dynamics, Jupiter and Cancer, in order for them to teach us, in order for us to recover some type of independence that maybe we felt we lost, or our ability to make choices or to discern correct choices that were aligned with our authenticity, Jupiter. Okay. And so, again, with Venus and that new phase to Jupiter, technically still square. Well, I mean, she's going to perfect her square on the 22nd to Ceres. That is where we are, called to implement what it is that we've been learning through our emotions being our teacher, and then to really ground into that and create these actions that are necessary in our lives in order to feel more secure, whole, and self-sustaining from the inside out. And then this helps us to tap into that Neptune retrograde. And then we get to attract different dynamics. And we don't have to keep reliving the past. It becomes purged. So on the 18th, the sun and Leo is going to trine Chiron retrograde. That's a last quarter trine. So that is really a clarifying aspect that shines the light on where our awareness around these types of woundings, dealing with relationships, is needing to be given new purpose and meaning. And it really clarifies where something is at a standstill, okay, dealing with these dynamics I'm speaking of. And so it's actually this, we have like some, kind of energy, but then we have these beautiful trines and sextiles going on Venus trining the North Node, sextiling the South Node. We've got the sextiles between Lilith and Cassandra and the North Node of Mars. And then we have, you know, the Sun trining Chiron. That really helps us to clarify what actions are needed to be taken, how we can utilize our wisdom that we've been garnering to implement this in our lives, especially if something is feeling uncomfortable right now, especially if something from the past is coming up. And it gives us this opportunity to resolve it, okay, for once and for all. And then on the 19th, we have Mercury in Leo, still ruled by that sun, sextiling Mars. This is where we could be called to, this is the time where we might need to be expressing, making that choice, taking that action to express our needs in order to receive, right? And if we don't receive, that could be helping us understand the value of not being attached to outcomes. It could also just be giving us feedback about someone not being able to hear where we're coming from, and it helps us really discern what choice we need to make dealing with that relational dynamic. Remember, Mercury is the ruler of Mars's North Node in Gemini, helping us through expressing we get the feedback from the counteraction, and then we get to learn more and take in new knowledge. And then we get to utilize that and metamorphose it and turn it into some type of wisdom in order to gain more security within. Okay. And that's part of the South Node of Venus conjunct Mars throughout this week as well. Okay. Kind of tying into all of this. And then lastly, for this week, I want to say that the Sun enters Virgo on the 22nd, and this is whenever that Venus square series perfects. And so, this is about, where are you giving purpose and meaning in your life, through what it is that you're improving upon, what it is that you are ready to get rid of, to purge, that you're no longer, you're like, this is not who I am. Virgo is also the archetype of the Virgin. Where are you giving purpose and meaning in your life around understanding that truth that you are whole unto yourself and you don't need anyone to complete you? Okay? And that is part of not only the sun entering into Virgo, being ruled by Mercury and Leo, they're in mutual reception. It's like I can choose me and not do it. And it doesn't have to be a selfish way, right? It can just be, I need to do what is right for me in order to get rid of the past. Um, and then with Venus square to Ceres, it's asking for that action to go full throttle, even if you feel insecure in this moment. Insecurity begets, it's like it foretells. There's a lot of growth that's about to happen here if you make the choice to create an action that is new, or something maybe you wanted to do, but you didn't do because you didn't listen to yourself in the past. This, that, or the other. This is like that energy coming full force and saying, here's your opportunity. It's okay if you're afraid. Sirius is in Aries. It's saying, have courage. Courage comes when we create the actions and make the choices, even in the face of insecurity and fear, right? Because that is actually creating the action that helps us start a new chapter, to create a new cycle, thus leaving the old one in the past. All right. So, this is really, really strong, beautiful energy. And it can come up in any one-on-one relational dynamic. It's also where this could just be us reflecting on this Saturn, in order for us to really cultivate deeper wisdom and a sense of authority around this. That way, when we're given the opportunity, because it will present itself, Saturn likes to test us on a soul level to see, are you self-determined? You have been thinking about this, you intellectually understand it, but are you willing to put in the work? Are you willing to be consistent? The square from Capricorn to Cancer. Are you willing to make the new choice? Capricorn to Aries. Are you willing to be self-determined to utilize what has been gained? Because wisdom doesn't become wisdom until action is put into the knowledge that has been gleaned or the understanding through the reflection, the self-reflection. And so this is a week where some of us could be getting little soul tests, or some of us big ones, around our own self-determination. Can you do the thing that might be scary? Can you do the thing that you know in your heart of hearts, in your gut, in your intuition, in your instinct that is correct? Do you want to stay reliving the past? Or do you want to open up a pathway for a new future? So it's this threshold area that we're in. And a lot is around courage, liberation, and expressing what it is that we need to express. So I'm going to leave it here for this week. And I will be making a separate video on the Virgo new moon happening on the 23rd. Just remember that these energies are going to be carrying into that new moon in Virgo. And so I want to give you food for thought before I post a video on that. That's a new moon in Virgo. There can be a lot of information and messages, because we're dealing with Mercury here, that we can be receiving, and we are going to be called to then utilize that to transform it into wisdom at some point. And that can be part of that new moon unfolding, because that has the opportunity for us to heal and to purge those dynamics that we've been working so hard to improve upon. Okay? So I hope you all have a beautiful week, and I will see you later this week on another video. Um, so just know that there's really lovely energy, that even if something's uncomfortable, there's a lot of clarity, and when actions are taken, things can typically fall better into place, all right? So I'll see you soon.